Hello, my lovely, and welcome to the Prosperous Yogini Podcast, episode 35. And for the next 3 episodes, I am going to be answering your questions that came up from that live coaching call from the Profitable Yoga Business Roadmap free launch event that I did a few weeks ago, because those questions that came up were absolutely gold dust. And I know that the questions that people are asking me for that coaching call, I am very, very confident they are also things that arise for you in your yoga business. Before I launch into today's topic, you might be like, oh, Amy, yes, I did know that you were in a launch event. I did notice that you did a free launch event into an open cut period for your mentoring program. How did it go? I can best describe where I am right now as a rabbit in the headlights, in the sense of like, oh my God, did that just happen? So I'm not quite fully in a place because I haven't fully looked at the data. I haven't fully taken it all in yet. I'm a little bit like pinch myself moment, I have to say. But I will do a full debrief of the launch in the future. But just to let you know, it went amazingly well. The free live event itself, I know, has been really transformational for people. I had amazing feedback. Using Facebook ads this time around really worked for me. I brought over 200 new people onto my list, and it's not just about bringing people onto your list. Like, I'm always like focused on the human connection. I've had so many new human connections. I've met so many new people into my community, into my audience, whether that be on social media, whether it be on this podcast, whether it be on my very small but mini but mighty, as I call, YouTube channel, whether it be on my mailing list. That this launch event has just grown my community and my connection with you guys. So I'm, first of all, immensely grateful for that. 10 new people have come into my mentoring program, which yeah, actually that was around about my target. So goal setting, I am a fan I'm a fan of not goal setting, but at the same time, that we can't help but just think like, I would like this to happen. Here's all the effort, the energy, my endeavors that I'm putting out there. And in exchange, I would really love to welcome around 10 new people into my mentoring program. That number feels really aligned. And actually, that didn't come up with that number looking at the data, conversion rates, and industry statistics on conversion rates. Honestly, I just tapped into energetically what felt right. And I do look at the data and I do think about that, but that is an aside always to me, to leaning into energetically what's going to feel right for me. Not to mention those that are already in my mentoring program are staying with me. So right now, just so blessed that this dream I had of creating this program that would support yoga teachers to create this profitable, sustainable, impactful yoga business, that is coming to fruition. And I think that rabbit in the headlights, excited, is this really happening feeling, comes from that this is just the beginning of it. That I'm going to open the doors again in June. I'm going to open the doors again in the autumn, and I can feel the momentum behind it and the change, that this is it. Yes, I am going to help women, help people share their passion and make money. And I'm like, yes, yes, this is what I feel was my dharma, my purpose right now. This is what lights me up. This is me leaning into what I love. This is me modeling to you what I suggest you do. Now, before I get fully into today's topic, I just want to also talk to you a little bit about this concept of compassionate expansion. Again, in terms of modeling a sustainable way of running your business. And it doesn't matter. So I've just been talking about, a launch event using targeted Facebook ads into a program, right? And for those of you that are like, oh, well, I'm just running a class. I'm just running a couple of classes every week, but I'm thinking of doing a workshop. This doesn't really apply to me, Amy. I'm going to say absolutely it does. It doesn't matter what stage of business that you're at and what the next thing you're thinking about trying to create. It doesn't matter. The concept is the same when it comes to this compassionate expansion. That I could not do this launch event every week. Like, no way. It would be exhausting. But change comes when we have this dream, when we have something that we want to put out into the world, when we have something that we want to create, whether it be that weekly class in your local village hall, whether it be your online membership, whether it be a retreat, whether it be a workshop, whether it be a program, a training program. Look, I don't really care what it is, whatever it is you are being called to create right now, okay, whatever that is, opening this yoga studio, whatever it is, to create that comes in a place of discomfort. Change comes when we try new stuff, when we put ourselves out there and try new stuff. So I put myself out there. I did targeted Facebook ads. The first live call of my free live event had over 30 people on the Zoom call, and I've not had that many people before. I really put myself out there. I really brought new people, new yoga teachers who hadn't met me before into my business to say, hey, I can help you with your yoga business. So really putting myself out there. And at times it felt uncomfortable. And of course, I had completely opened myself to rejection because 177 people signed up to the Profitable Yoga Business Roadmap free launch event. 10 people unsubscribed from that group on my list, and 10 people have come into my mentoring program. So that means 166 didn't. Now, I knew already that, in terms of and this is where the data can help. And in terms of data conversion, that, of that 177 people, some of them are going to unsubscribe. Many of them wouldn't turn up live. The majority of them wouldn't come into my mentoring program this time around. I knew all of that. But you do open yourself up to that rejection, to people saying, thank you, it's not for me. Or answering people's emails in full, giving them some help with their yoga business and them not responding. And doesn't mean that you didn't help them, doesn't mean that they don't like you, just they haven't responded. So you have to put yourself out there. You have to put yourself in a place of discomfort. You cannot be continually putting yourself in a place of discomfort. That what's that mantra you can hear, feel the fear and do it anyway. You know what? Sometimes, you have to feel the fear, but you cannot be feeling the fear and doing it anyway every single day in your life. You cannot be doing that at every single moment in your business. You have moments where there's that energetic charge forward. You allow that change to manifest, to happen, and then you're like, oh, actually this is fine. I'm okay. I'm actually used to this now. And you let that bed in, and then there'll be another moment, another wave. So compassionate expansion comes from, growth isn't a straight line trajectory. That's what I'm saying. Growth comes from, forward surges, rest. What do we know? Growth, how does growth come in our yoga practice? From the yin and the yang. I must at some point, whether do a podcast episode or even a training on this, do the yin and the yang in your business, your nervous system and your yoga business. And you can't always be charging that sympathetic nervous system. You have to allow for periods of, neutrality, just going along with everything as it is. Moments of rest. Maybe you have let some things go, and in those moments of rest, you are preparing for growth. All right, my darlings, let's get on with today's topic. Okay, so probably the most common question I got was around arranging payment structures. So I've called today's podcast topic passes, blocks, and boundaries. I got loads of questions about drop-ins, class passes, and what do I do? What, if someone's booked a place and they don't turn up and they ask to carry credit over. This came up an awful lot. How do I arrange my classes? So I'll start off by telling you actually what I do. All right. Now, just because I do it doesn't mean it will work for you, but this is just a suggestion. I'm an island. I'm a one-man band. I don't have a yoga studio. I rent a space and I teach 4 in-person classes a week. And they are 2 toddler classes, a mum and baby, and a pregnancy yoga class. Okay. I charge in blocks. There is a start date. There is an end date to this block. And space permitting, I will allow for drop-in, and the drop-in rate is a lot more expensive, and I limit the amount of drop-ins. So I am, first of all, directing and encouraging everyone into that block. And then someone asked me, well, how do you know how long a block to be? And I'm like, well, this is the thing you've got to get into your mind when you're arranging all of this. You decide, it's your business, what's going to work for you. So I like to reduce what I'm doing work wise in the school holidays. So my in-person classes stop. I do not teach pregnancy, postnatal, toddler yoga in the school holidays, full stop. So the first thing, I arrange my blocks, it works out quite well, into those half-termly spots, which really work for me and my family. Also works for like most groups for mums and babies stopping school holidays anyway. And actually, I found a little rhythm that my blocks are 5 weeks long. And actually, I don't necessarily teach for the whole of the half term. I'll give myself good chunks of time off between another block starting, because, there are other things going on in my business. I really love, and it's important for me actually to teach weekly. It really helps inform my training courses. It really helps when I'm mentoring to say, this is what I'm doing. Yeah, I've experienced that. Yeah, this is what's going on for me. It really helps with that side of things. But also, I just love my weekly interaction with my bumps, mums, and little ones. Like, there is no secret that I love toddler yoga. I do 2 toddler yoga classes a week, and like, hand on heart, like I could probably pay them to turn up. It's a highlight. So but that said, there are so many layers to my business now with my training and my mentoring that it really works for me to teach in 5-week blocks, give myself space both for holidays and maybe even either side of that, just to give myself like a 2-week break between a block, if say it's a half-term break. So that's how I've arranged it, because it works for me. But that may be different for you. You might be like, no, I really want to teach in the holidays, or I don't have children and this concept of term time stuff doesn't work for me. What I saw a lot of teachers doing was having class passes. So you could buy a 5 class pass, say, and it had to be used within a time frame of 3 months. And what was arising was, well, this is leading to my numbers fluctuating. And this was the real problem that a lot of people were having with the way they're arranging their payment structures, that one week they'd have a class of 10, next week they'd have a class of 2, and then the following week there'd be a class of 15. And it was completely inconsistent. And some of you were expressing that, I'm resenting that I planned this class, I've driven to this venue, I've lugged this equipment, and last week there were 12 people at this class, and this week, for whatever reason, there's 2. And when I drill down to it, it's, well, you've got this pass system. So if they don't turn up one week, they don't lose their money. They don't lose out. The only person that loses is you. And actually, what's the difference really between a pass and a drop-in? When you've got a pass that can be used over a period of time, what's the difference between a pass and a drop-in? And I'm like, there really isn't one. Really, when you're buying a pass, you're allowing people to buy a collection of drop-ins. All right, yes, it has a time frame, but most people's time frames were pretty wide. And I'm like, and what's the admin on this? How are you tracking this? Because for me, I keep it super simple. I have a block price. It has a start and an end date. I use Bookwen, and Bookwen is so good for like setting this up. There's a start and an end date. Yes, you can book mid-block, space permitting. But that normally, like, my because I'm like, they fill up, you better book your space. People book their space. And there is a drop-in rate, and my drop-in rate is £3 more expensive than the block. Like, I make the drop-in rate a little bit uncomfortable, because I don't really want people to think that the drop-in rate is an alternative to the block. The drop-in rate is really there for that person who's just maybe a little unsure, hasn't been to class before, doesn't know it's for them, and does want to try it. Like, I acknowledge that. And I think we have this problem as like one-man band, sole traders, solo entrepreneurs, of using a model that doesn't apply to us. And what I mean by that is if I take like a larger chain or a larger yoga studio, they will often do a monthly membership, or you can buy a block of classes and they have to be used in a certain time frame. But there's a class that I could book in every day, and that yoga studio model of this class pass is really relying on a high volume of students, a high volume of classes, and that means that individual will use that pass within that given period of time. Well, when you're like, I'm teaching 1 or 2 classes a week and you're doing that class pass model, it doesn't work. It does not lead to consistency. And when I challenge people on this, what then comes up is, oh, I feel bad if they miss a week. So one of the people was like, I teach an evening class. I've got a lot of retired people. They often have they often have like grandparent commitments, or they go on holiday. And right now my payment structure allows for all of that. And if I change my payment structure, I then don't allow for that. And I'm like, well, the thing is, at the moment, what you're doing is completely unsustainable. So let's turn, when it's like you feel like the light's on you and you're feeling like, I'm going to let people down. So this is the people pleasing. You've got these students that you care about and you want them to come to yoga, right? And you're going to feel bad if they paid for a class and for whatever reason they're not coming. But let's turn the spotlight off you and bring it onto them. Imagine how they would feel if you turned around and said, look, I'm really sorry, I'm going to stop this class because it's financially not viable, because some weeks I don't cover my costs. Some weeks I'm paying to be here. And those people that have gone on holiday who want to come back to their yoga class with you would be like, this is awful. I want to keep coming to yoga. How can we make this happen? Well, you charge in blocks. There's a start and an end date. Okay. You acknowledge you're not a large gym chain. You acknowledge you're not a yoga studio with a large teaching schedule with a high volume of students coming through the door. You are none of those things. Okay. And even if you are a yoga studio, you still also, I just want to caveat this, have costs, overhead costs of your rent, your teachers, if you're paying your teachers, you want to pay yourself a wage, by the way. So even if you're a yoga studio, I would argue that your payment structure should encourage people for consistent attendance and consistent commitment to you, to your yoga business, to your yoga classes, to your yoga studios. But let's take it back to those of you that are just teaching those. I'm going to say, like, it could be like 6, 7 classes a week, even 1 or 2. You're not a yoga studio. You're not a gym chain. You've not got large volumes of students coming through your doors every week. You are offering this class and to this group of people. And if they want to go on holiday, lovely. I'm all for everyone going on holiday. If their car breaks down, I'm like really gutted. It's so annoying when your car breaks down. Yeah. If they are being asked to do a grandparent duty, well, yeah, I'm enjoy the time with your grandchildren. Sorry, you can't come to yoga tonight. If they want all of those things to happen, but when they're not being distracted by those things, they want to come do yoga with you, your payment system, your payment structure should really encourage that, as should your terms and conditions, which is your boundaries. And one thing that really came up was people like not being clear in their boundaries. And because they weren't clear in their boundaries, the people booking in were unclear what their boundaries were. And then when they tried to either put some boundaries in, it all felt uncomfortable. Whereas it's much better if the boundaries are up front. So I'm going to take it away for a moment from yoga. Okay, because this is going to help you a lot. My children go swimming, right? And I pay for their swimming classes, for their swimming teacher to teach them in termly blocks, 10 to 12 weeks. There is a start date. There is an end date. There is a limited amount of spaces for this swimming class. And I understand when I make this booking that I am booking their place in this swimming class. I understand if they miss a week, that credit does not roll over, that if they're ill, I'm on holiday, my car breaks down, that that unfortunately is my bad luck, not the swimming school's bad luck, not the swimming teacher's bad luck. I understand that this swimming school has overheads. It needs to pay the teacher. It needs to pay the pool hire. I also understand as a yoga teacher, you have overheads. You need to purchase equipment. You need to travel to the venue. You need to hire the venue. You deserve to be paid. Yeah. I understand when I book in for a yoga class, I am booking my place in that class. And that's why the block payment structure, even though this might be a moment of discomfort, like making this change, if you move from a class pass situation to a drop it for a class pass or drop-in situation into a more structured block payment system with clear terms and conditions, like credit is not transferable or rolling over, you're booking your place in this class, and I'm doing this so I can be here for you every week, that I can be available for you. And also I'm doing this because the best thing for you where possible is you do yoga every week. You are encouraging consistency in your students. We know transformation comes in consistency, and that's when we have that big wobble. You're like, oh, but what happens if they're this, and what happens if they're this? Then a few more expensive drop-in places just allows for that student who, oh, the next 6-week blocks, I'm on holiday for 3 weeks. Fine, I'll do the drop-in. That allows that there is a compromise there. So for those of you doing drop-ins, if you're only doing drop-ins, if it's working for you, I'm going to say this: if the class pass situation and the drop-in work situation is working for you, that's fine. Okay. I'm also a fan of not changing anything that's broken. But people in this coaching call came to me with this problem that they had a payment structure that was not encouraging consistency, and resentment was building up. That resentment was some weeks they were not covering their costs. Some weeks there were only a couple of people turning up. It was completely inconsistent, unreliable. Okay. Inconsistent, unreliable, not sure if you're going to cover your costs, not sure if you're going to make some money. Nervous system. This is pretty stressful, right? This is sympathetic nervous system, right? You can't operate in a place like this. So for you to operate long term, for you to serve in a sustainable way, there needs to be a payment structure that allows you to operate in a sustainable way, that encourages your students to turn up and be consistent. And as long as you're upfront at the beginning in the booking process, as long as you're very, very clear, when someone books on, they know. If they don't like that, they don't have to book on. And what will happen is you will just attract. So when I made some suggestions, they were like, well, I think some of my students won't like that. And I was like, well, I just really, really lovingly say, are they really your dream students? Your students, your dream student loves doing yoga with you. Your dream student wants you to thrive as a yoga teacher. Your dream student wants you to not be worried that you're not making money as a yoga teacher. You're not making money from your class. Your dream student wants you to turn up like full of energy and abundance to teach them, knowing that that is coming back in a vibrational exchange, both of joy from helping people and the vibration of money. That's what your dream student wants. Your dream student does not want you to suffer. Yeah. And when you turn up, when you've got a payment structure where only a couple of people came one week, 10 people there the week before, 3 the week before, oh, it's cold and icy, and the football is on. I don't know why I'm using football example. The football's on, one person claim. Your dream students don't want you to operate like that. And actually, if your clients, your students, if they knew this, like they'd be like, oh yeah, this doesn't work. You're right. I'm happy to pay for a block. I understand why you're making this change in your payment structure. And if you listen to this podcast, go, I'm going to be brave and do this. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm going to move to a block payment structure. And it feels a little bit uncomfortable telling your students. Well, first of all, I'm going to say, you can just tell them that your payment structure is changing. You don't have to explain yourself. And if you did, you can do it in a really, really lovely way, just to say, to make the class financially sustainable and viable for me, this is how I will be charging as of, and give your students some warning. Okay. It will be worth it. It will be worth it. So then, when it comes to our boundaries, of course, I am a human being. Of course, I care about my students. And of course, there are times when I do go against my own terms and conditions. So I will give you some examples. In my classes, so let's say you are pregnant and you book onto a pregnancy yoga block, I'm like, that his start and an end date credit doesn't transfer over to other blocks, non-refundable. And in very rare circumstances, I have to say, thank goodness, in the last 12 years that I've been teaching pregnancy yoga, I've had a handful, like literally a couple of women who sadly lost their babies during their pregnancy. I 100% refund their block. I refund their block the minute I know what's happened to them. They don't ask. I'm just like, I've refunded the money. I really hope we meet again in the future. No questions asked, right? With my training courses, so let's take my pregnancy yoga teacher training course. Like, again, deposits are non-refundable once people buy the online course. It's a non-refundable training course. And there's one lady, and actually this is when it was an in-person course. It's a good story, actually. I had a lady sign up to my pregnancy yoga training course when it was in person, and she was pregnant, and literally she paid in full, paid me just under £600 the day before we were due to start. Okay, so she's out of that refund period. The deposit is non-refundable anyway. And then there's, I think there's a 28 days beforehand payment must be made in full, non-refundable. Okay. And I have to have these clear boundaries with we talk about boundaries with our classes, but boundaries with everything. I have to have these clear boundaries with my training programs, because with the online stuff, someone could sign up, get all the information and then go, oh, actually, I'll have a refund. Or like when it's an in-person training, like I can only fit a certain amount of people in. It's an expensive place. So I want them to commit. I need them to commit for it to be financially viable. Same if you're running a retreat. Okay, for example, which is why we see non-refundable deposits and payments needing to be made in full before a certain time frame, and that being non-refundable because you have to pay the retreat center, if they drop out. So you have to protect your income. You matter too. You matter. Love extends to your students and to you. Balance, okay? So let me tell you the story of this lady. So just literally the day before we were due to start, she's in her second trimester. She's 25 weeks, I think, maybe 26. I get an email from her saying she's had her baby. And obviously she won't be coming to the course. Now, baby born extremely prematurely, baby born literally on that cusp of survival for premature babies. And I can't remember now, because going back a good many years, I can't remember whether she asked for a refund, but I gave her all her money back, like no questions asked. And I said, please keep me up to date with how you're doing. And I didn't hear anything from her for 12 months. And then I got this picture about 12 months later of her and her baby, her child, at home, and it was like completely lit me up. I was like, oh yes, miracles do happen. But the reason why I'm telling you those stories about times where I have just given refunds back, no questions asked, is there are just those moments where we go, oh gosh, absolutely. But I'm not advertising this. You will not find this, like, I've not put anywhere in extreme circumstances, I will give you your money back anywhere, because I do it on a case-by-case basis. And the difficulty is when someone, I'm going to say, like, unknowingly, they're not meaning to do it, but someone like pushes your boundaries. Oh, could I carry that credit over? Or would you be happy to refund me? And it's always really difficult. And it's a very fine balance. And I'm not going to sit here and say, Always say yes, always say no. I'm going to say deal with it by case basis. Don't, if it's a bit of if it's like oh my goodness, gosh, yes, of course, have your money back. I gave you two extreme examples there. But if it's a bit of I'm not sure, are they pushing it? Is this really fair to me and to them? My recommendation is this: stop. Don't respond. Don't respond to that initial request. Think on it. Think on it. Give yourself some time and make an aligned decision. Because sometimes we're like, sometimes I'm like, I'm going to give this money back to this person and hope they go away. But right? Yeah. Okay. And sometimes we're like, they're really taking the Michael, this is like clear terms and conditions, and it can be like I'm really sorry to hear your car broke down and you couldn't make it to class. Unfortunately, credit does not roll over, is non-transferable. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Yeah. And it is laid out in the and if your terms and conditions, if your boundaries are clearly laid out as part of your booking system, then you don't often find yourself in this position. Then, to finish today, one of the things that I find some people are lacking is those boundaries, those terms and conditions when I'm booking and finding them, which is why your website is a superpower if you have one. And if you don't have one, I want you to think about that. Or if you do use, you don't have to have a website. Sometimes you can use your booking system, such as my booking boundaries are terms and conditions are very clearly laid out when people book through my Book When site for classes, for examples. Okay, my darling, I hope you found that useful. Next 2 weeks, we'll also be answering your questions. And I'm sure for many of you today, you've listened to me talk about passes. You've listened to me talk about drop-ins, and you're like, yeah, that's me. And the thought of putting in some change feels uncomfortable. But you need to put in some change because staying where you are isn't working. And I'm going to remind you of this compassionate expansion. Be brave, make that change, let it bed in. You'll be like, honestly, a couple of months down the line, why did I not do that sooner? Why did I do that sooner? In fact, actually, just to finish, one of the ladies on the coaching call was like, yeah, I moved from passes to blocks when someone who coming to her yoga class told her about her fitness exercise class that she was doing in the same village hall, charged in blocks. And this yoga teacher went, why am I doing it so differently? Why am I doing it like this? Look, we're all just copying each other. All right. We're all looking to models that, such as gyms, larger yoga studios that may not apply to us. And I would love you to be that leading light to say, this is what my yoga classes are worth. This is what I'm going to charge. This is how I'm going to arrange my payment structures. And I'm going to turn up and serve, and I will show other yoga teachers the light that it can be this way, so we can end this cycle, okay, of yoga teachers struggling to make money in an industry that is worth billions of pounds. All right, my darlings, on that note, mentoring program, doors reopen in June. If I put the link in the show notes, add your name to the waiting list, because sometimes you're like, yeah, I know I need to do this. Yeah, you're right, Amy. Yeah. And the change is really hard. And what you need is me in your corner saying, let's try it. Let's see what happens. Because this is the other thing. If you don't go, you don't know. Try it. See what happens. You can always change it. If you make a change and it doesn't work, you can always change it again. It is your yoga business. All right, my darlings. I'll see you all next week.